Okay guys, Jay at Broader Performance here. Try something a little different. So what I want to go over a little bit is these AODs. I'm not going to do, step by step how to rebuild it and all that. I'm sure there's plenty of that out there already, but there's a few things that builders seem to miss on these. Especially novice builders, and I've been telling people this for years, but I don't think they believe me. So biggest problem with this unit. Okay, let's start off. If you're searching on the internet or whatever, you're talking to some people about these, they tell you, oh yeah, you got to have the 89 and up case and this and that, and it's got a better lube system. If you don't use that, it's going to fail. The rear planet fails, or whatever they tell you. Well, yeah, they did do an oiling upgrade, not to the case that I can tell, but they did it to the output shaft. And let me grab one. Give me 1 second here, guys. I wasn't prepared enough. Well, don't have the old one to show you. Okay, that's alright. So, I don't know if you can see this. I've got to get used to this camera stand, but if you look here, there's a hole here, and it has a very small hole inside of it. Okay, and what that is, it's a lube hole, and they're basically, it's a pressure forced lube to the rear circuit. They did make that change. I believe in '89 is when that happened. The earlier ones did not have that. So if you're talking about a lube upgrade, what's important is don't worry about the case, don't worry about anything else. The only real difference is this output shaft. So you can get the newer style output shaft, and that's really all you have to do there. But I'm going to tell you what I think is the biggest problem with the lube circuit in here. More so than that. I'm not saying I don't like that upgrade. I do, obviously, because I have changed this shaft for this build. I'm still trying to sort out the parts and everything to do this build. So, I've got some ugly stuff and some okay stuff here. I'm just trying to get organized here to get this trans together. So, anyways, good upgrade is to get that 89 and up shaft if you can. These things are getting hard to get too. But here's what I think is a bigger problem. Now, this is the original cast iron drum, and I always tell people, look, if you're going to build this unit, buy a new direct drum. And a lot of people don't listen to me on that. They think, well, why is he trying to sell me that? Well, I don't care if you buy one from me or not. I mean, God's honest truth, they probably make $10 on that part. So we don't go bankrupt if you don't buy the drum from us. It's nice if you do. We appreciate all business, but I'm not, I don't make these drums. I'm not dying to sell them, so don't think that. But I do have them, and I do sell them, and I do appreciate you buying them from us. So if you can see here, these splines kind of start pretty far down into the drum, and this is where your long input shaft goes into. Okay, that goes in there. So what happens over time is hydraulic pressure from the torque converter pushes on this, is I believe what's happening, and over time it just slowly just eats its way down, its way into the splines. And when it gets eaten like this one's pretty bad, but this is very common. I don't have a problem with this cast iron drum, other than they just always have spline recession. So I almost never get to reuse them. Probably Maybe I've done it once. I don't know. It's that bad. But here's a new one, and you can't get a new cast iron drum to my knowledge. So stamped steel now. So you have to change your pressure plate and everything and different steels. But you can see, I mean, there is a chamfer here, but the splines are pretty much at the top. And the reason we care about that is because of this. So I want you to, when you take these apart, I want you to look at this drum and those splines, and you think, yeah, I don't know, they might be a little worn. Take a look at this, and you can see this shiny spot here. And what this is, and you can see it on the shaft normally too. Yeah, you can kind of see it. But this will touch here, and it kind of wears into it, which is not a big deal. They're two hardened metals. They don't generally make chips and things. Doesn't generally cause a problem, but this hole here is your lube hole, or one of your lube holes, that's fed off of this hole I just showed you. So even though you upgrade to the newer shaft, what happens is, if the splines are recessed and you didn't change the drum, this kind of wears in, creates a seal, and it pinches this lube hole off. Now you can see this little notch here. I put this notch here. And the reason I put that notch there is I'm just going to expect over time, this is, even though I replaced the drum, this is probably going to happen again at some point. So if it does, when this touches, at least the oil can go around and, you know, out that slot. That's the reason I do that. Just, you know, real simple. I just do it on my bench grinder or whatever. You can use whatever you got, Dremel tool or whatever. Now some guys tell you take this shaft and cut an X in it. Yeah, you can do that. But if somebody puts this upside down, it doesn't work, obviously. And I don't know, to me that's just kind of goofy. Just put the little notch in the output shaft and done deal. That just seems a lot easier to me. So that's really something I don't think people talk about enough. Maybe I'm wrong, but people just kind of look at you funny or have a funny reaction when you try to sell them this new drum if they're building an AOD, and that's important. Now the other thing I just ran into in this is, you know, kind of like I was saying in another video, where you think you got all your parts together and you're trying to get something done for the weekend or whatever it is. Well, I just ran into a problem here that I have not encountered before. Brand new overhaul kit I had to buy, not from my normal supplier, but from a different supplier. And when these transmissions first came out, okay, these rings, they go on this output shaft here, and they go into that bore in the case. And one of the things you got to check on this unit, make sure these rings have not worn grooves into the case. Pretty common, pretty important. This ring here concerns me because what happened to Ford back in 1980 and 81 when these came out, these rings were wearing into the case very badly. So the solution was, if you see this, it's a different color. It's a nickel plate. So back in the day, the solution was they came out with these nickel plated rings. And this ring I just got here is, you know, I don't know what this coating is, but it doesn't look like a nickel plate, and I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to chance it. And this is something disappointing to me because I thought I had everything I needed and I don't have this. So that's frustrating. I've got it, but I don't want to use it. And I need 4 of them, and hey, look how many I had in my extra supply of stuff. I had 3, so I'm 1 short. Very frustrating. So I'll have to get some more, and I'm not going to be able to buy this brand. And, you know, oh, I hope you didn't see that bag there. I could get sued for $83 million or something for defamation, but we don't want that. So anyways, I would, I have never had this issue until recently. I don't know what they were thinking, but in any case, be safe and go with the nickel-plated rings if your kit doesn't have them. If it doesn't have them, you're going to have to get them. And it's, it's getting harder just to get, single rings and things like that anymore. It's getting hard enough just to get the overhaul kits and, getting one piece or two pieces of something or a seal. It can be kind of frustrating, especially if you got to pay $20 to ship one of these, or even 4 of these, or whatever it is. That's kind of annoying. So, but anyways, just something to check, and hopefully you won't run into that. This may be just a fluke. It's never happened to me before, so. So that's the main thing I want to tell you. I'm not going to go over every single piece of this build. That would take me a long time, and I think there's a lot of people that have kind of covered these builds pretty well. So I don't really need to do. I'm trying to do videos of things that I think are not out there is my goal, and the other stuff you can just watch. You want to know how to tear one of these down and put it back together. There's probably a ton of videos on it, and again, like I always say, if you want a good quality video that's very detailed, I recommend Ken Collins, Bad Shoe Productions. They're very reasonable. I know everybody likes everything free, but they're very reasonably priced. You have it forever. It's going to be more thorough. I know the guy knows what he's doing. Some of the people making YouTube videos may not know what they're doing. Maybe me. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing, so maybe you shouldn't even be listening to me. But that's, that's the thing you deal with free information, so you don't know what you're getting there. But anyway, so if you're building one of these and either don't really know much about them or you've never done one before, I hope that helps you. There's a lot of other things I could show you on this unit. I think other people kind of cover it pretty well, but of course I have my own opinion on how things need to be done and things like that. And one thing I will say I don't like, so on this direct drum, this is your smallest clutch pack in the whole unit. And a lot of people will buy these 8 friction power pack kind of deals. It's got a really thin top pressure plate, thin steels, thin frictions. My opinion, don't use that. I put 7 in here with thicker steels and a thicker pressure plate. You thin your pressure plate down. It's one thing to cut a little step in it. That's okay, but to thin the whole thing down, when the piston applies, it tends to cone and cup that top pressure plate if it's too thin. Hell, the thick ones over time can, kind of get crowned. So you need that mass on the pressure plate to support it. And you also, thicker steels and thicker pressure plates, it helps dissipate heat and things like that. So that's important too, in my opinion. So to me, 6 or 7 is a good number. 6 is even pretty great because you can use even thicker steels. I typically, most builds use 7. I can get 7 in there pretty comfortable. But it's up to you. I know 8 sounds better, but I like the steel mass in there. I don't mind the thin frictions, but I do mind the thin steels. And I definitely stay away from thin pressure plates on any unit, in my opinion. So that's just another tip for you, because the very back portion of this transmission is very important to it surviving. The rest of it seems to hold up pretty well. The valve body's key. The valve body really needs help in these units. Valve bodies are kind of difficult to work on in these. I would say, in my opinion, your biggest challenge on this unit is the valve body. The gear train goes together pretty nice, doesn't really need a whole lot. One thing about them, they do tend to suffer from overpressuring on the torque converters. So, and let me, excuse me 1 minute, let me see if I have a cover. Okay, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but if you look here, you can see the imprint of the flywheel bolts, or flex plate bolts, whatever, and they're pretty deep. So what happens is, this cover, I've even removed the damper on this one, but this cover is pretty thin, which is, you know, typical of these OEM converters, but what's different in this unit is it's got a lot of pressure in the converter, and it kind of gets trapped in there, and so it just causes this converter to balloon a lot, and that's why you see these dimples. You can actually see, and especially on some of these, this one, you know, they're all like this. So don't freak out if you see it. It's normal. It's very rare when you don't see them, honestly. But you get a lot of pressure into the converter, which is good in a way, but the oiling system is very restrictive, so it doesn't allow the pressure to leave the converter. And obviously, when you see this ballooning, it's pushing on your crankshaft. It could, in theory, cause the thrust on the crank to wear out quicker. I don't really hear major problems with an AOD with, you know, actually ruining the motor, but it is something to be aware of, and there are ways of fixing that, which I'm not going to go over on this video. That's a whole nother subject on fixing that stuff, but that's just another thing with this unit that I want to point out that can be kind of a problem with it. And you can solve it. Well, I mean, you can solve the ballooning by doing a billet cover converter, but really you're still putting that load on the crankshaft, so you really need to relieve the pressure out of the converter somewhat. These make really good pressure, they flow pretty well, which is nice, but you don't want all that pressure trapped in the converter. And that's a reason. So anyways, I think I'm going to stop here on this one, and I could make probably an 8-hour video on this unit, but I obviously can't do that here, and I don't think YouTube allows that anyway. So okay, I'm going to stop here, and thanks for watching, and I'll show you some more stuff on this unit as we go along. Thanks a lot.